Are you awake? Why are you awake? How did it happen? How did you have your awakening? And do you have the ability to awaken others? Do you know how to do that? Today I'm going to talk about 10 rules for awakening your friends and family. Welcome to the Liberty Restoration Show. My name is Jason W. Hoyt, founder of Liberty Restoration Publishing, and I am fascinated by how and when people wake up. And there's all different types of awakenings that could happen. But before I get started and go through those 10 rules, I'm going to tell you big tech will ban this show at some point. There's going to be topics that I'm going to cover that YouTube won't like. They're going to get rid of some couple episodes here or there. Facebook, I guarantee, I'm already banned from broadcasting live on Facebook right now. So I'm going to make you a deal. To get every single episode, I'm going to send you guys some alerts. I don't want your email address. Go to freelibertybook.com. Here's the deal. If you sign up to get alerts, I'll give you a free download of my latest book. It's the I Choose Liberty Pocket Constitution. Again, freelibertybook.com. Today, I'm talking about the 10 rules for awakening your friends and family. You can go to jasonwhoyt.com/002 to get all the notes on the episode. Let's get started with these. I am fascinated by how and when people wake up. Everybody, and today specifically, I want to talk about, let's say, politics. It could be economy and politics, that kind of thing. But people have health awakenings. You know, maybe they experience something and they start to realize, wow, sugar's not bad, or sugar's not good for me. Fat's not bad. People have an awakening in that regard. People have a financial awakening. People have a spiritual awakening. And today, really, I'm talking about a political awakening. In the coming weeks and months, I'm going to be talking about all of those different types of awakenings. But politically speaking, I want to go over 10 rules, if you will, rules, guidelines, thoughts, considerations for trying to awaken your friends and family. When I talk about friends and family, however, the reason why is it's people that you know. I'm not talking about strangers. This used to be able to apply to social media. I used to be able to have discussions with people on social media where I would ask a lot of, and we'll talk about a lot of these different things, these 10 different things, where I would do these different things with people on social media. We'd have good conversation and people would kind of wake up. They'd kind of have that moment. Let's define some terms. An awakening. Here's the trajectory of your life. You're going along, and then there's something that doesn't quite sit right. It's a little bit, You get a little bit curious about it, right? You start to ask some questions, right? You start to, and then maybe another seed's planted, and then something happens and you just wake up. And an awakening is when you were this way, you wake up here, and then you live your life differently from that point on. You wake up, you're up off the couch and you're engaged and you're doing something about it. It's not just you have a realization about something and then you go back to your slumber and your old ways. An awakening to me is where you awaken and you do something different now. I'm living different. I'm getting engaged. I'm getting active. I'm getting involved. For me, my political awakening, I'd call it back in 2003, the early days of the second Bush-Cheney campaign, watching John Kerry and his flip-flop, I voted for it before I voted against it and all that kind of stuff. There was something about that moment. And here's something to think about. I didn't even add this as one of the 10. Maybe I should put 11, but everybody's awakening is going to be different. It's not right or wrong. It's just different. So maybe that's part of rule number 1. Let's go through these. Rule number 1, consider where they are and what's their hot button issue. Consider where they are, because your awakening may have happened a long time ago and they're not even awake yet. I've met so many people in the last 12 months who are beginning to wake up because of all this COVID stuff, because of the hypocrisy, the inconsistency, the unscientific rules and regulations and just inconsistencies. People are starting to wake up. You know, the powers that be are ripping the Band-Aid off a little bit too fast, and people are jumping and they're waking up. They're starting to notice. But why weren't they awake 15 years ago? Why weren't they, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to question that. Everybody's timing is a little bit different, but recognize where people are now. Now, I say that because the guy, maybe back in the day, the first time some kid gets a paycheck, who's this FICA guy? What are these taxes for? And then they start to question things. They start to research things. They start to look at taxes and income tax and this. Why does this state have an income tax and this one doesn't? And then what's the federal income tax? The 16th Amendment of the Constitution, 1913. When did that happen? 1913 is the 17th Amendment, the 16th Amendment, and the Federal Reserve was started. The Federal Reserve, are you kidding? There's no gold backing the dollar. It's just paper money printed. The Federal Reserve's not even a part of the federal government. It's just, so somebody who is there now talking to someone who's just getting their first paycheck, they're going to sound crazy, right? They're going to sound way out there. So consider where they are. Instead of being here and yelling at people about the Federal Reserve and this body that's not even controlled. They haven't had a press conference in 100 years. There's no oversight. Instead of yelling at people, consider where they are and figure out a way to, why don't you take a look at your paycheck? Who's this FICA guy? Maybe you ask questions like that. Consider where they are and what's their hot button issue. Someone who's making $15 an hour, who's got coworkers who haven't been there very long and don't have the skill that you have as a $15 an hour kid. This person over here is $9. And then your state passes a $15 an hour minimum wage. And that $9 an hour guy is now making the same 15 and he hasn't been there as long, doesn't have the skills that you do. That's an opportunity to start talking to that person. That might be their hot button issue. Someone who's dealing with masks and all this inconsistency, this unscientific, crazy stuff. Maybe that's their hot button issue. Maybe you start talking to them, but you got to consider that first. Number 2 is you have to be willing to ask why. I think why is a very powerful question. If you ask why enough times, 7 times or whatever it is, the number is, if you ask why enough times, you're going to get to the root cause. Not that I was like a whiny brat kid when I was little, but I can imagine. I have to ask my mom and dad when they watch this, and they may report in and contradict me here, but I don't think I was like, why? I wasn't like that, but I mean, it's an important question to ask. You've got to ask why. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. Wow, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. Then you eventually get to the root cause. You've got to be willing to ask why. And if you can do it in a nice enough way when you're talking to your friends and family, neighbors, coworkers, people you know, you have to do it with a genuine curiosity as well. I wonder why. And have them wait for that pause, that awkward pause for them to answer, right? That's just a great way to get that conversation going. You also have to define words. Words don't have the same meanings they used to. So you and I might be singing from a different song sheet, right? One person's speaking Italian, the other one's speaking German. If you guys are like this, you're not speaking the same language, right? I may quote the founding fathers. Because what they did was phenomenal. They're noble. The sacrifice of their lives, their fortune, their sacred honors to finally declare independence and declare that our rights come from God and the proper role of government is to protect our rights, not to determine them, was phenomenal, and I revere them, right? But when I use founding fathers with somebody over here, they've been taught that, geez, they drove horse and buggies. What do they know? Half of them own slaves. What do they know? Blah, blah, blah. We're not using the same, we're not coming from the same perception here. And we have to define words and understand that they may have a different understanding. We've got to consider that. Number 4, seek first to understand, then be understood. Stephen Covey wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of them, if not the first, was seek first to understand, then be understood. It's so important when you're engaging with people. Seek first to don't just make a point. Just don't be at somebody and trying to make a point, and being at them and in their face trying to be understood. You need to understand me. No, seek first to understand. Try to figure out, where are they coming from? What is their understanding of these words that we're going to be using, especially in economics? Half the people have no idea what supply and demand is and why capitalism is great and why capitalism has pulled more people out of poverty than any social program the government's ever implemented. but they may not understand these things. So if you try to understand where they are, you're going to find out where they are eventually. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Number 5, this is a hard one. This is a very hard one. Even though they may be emotional, try to reason with them. Now, it may not be at the height of their emotion. They may be at such a rabid spot and so angry at Trump's mean tweets. Just walk away, come back later, right? When they're all fired up, orange man bad. They've been watching MSNBC. And I'm not saying you're going to convert everybody over here, right? You're looking for opportunity to begin the process of sparking that awakening in somebody. It may not happen with the most rabid of your family, friends, neighbors, or coworkers, but even though they may be emotional, try to reason with them. But I need to put an asterisk, but not at the time of the height of their emotion, right? 6, again, ask questions to make them think. Ask questions to make them think. And here's a couple of examples. Questions that make them reveal hypocrisy or inconsistency. I wonder, well, that's weird, right? You do it calmly, right? I wonder, oh, that's weird. Don't you think that's strange that the governor walked out and for his press conference to mandate everybody and to wear masks, and his sign language interpreter next to him wasn't even wearing one? Isn't that weird? If the virus is so bad and it's so scary, how come they're not all wearing it? Right? That reveal hypocrisy or inconsistency. And you've seen it so many times where this governor or this government employee, they dictate this and blah, blah, blah. And then there's photos of them on vacation in a different state. I mean, the hypocrisy or inconsistency. But ask questions. Oh, that's weird. I thought that, how does the virus know where the state line is? You're asking these different types of questions that reveal hypocrisy and inconsistency. Ask questions about consequences and slippery slopes. Man, I wish, I still, for the life of me, I don't understand. And maybe someday I'll do some digging and some research to really try to find out why. In 1913, they passed the 16th Amendment, the direct taxation of income by the federal government. Why in the world did the American people at that time think that was okay? Because I'm sure they sold it as, it's only going to be on the top 1%, right? It's only going to be, the tax is only going to be this big, and it's only the 1% people over there. They do that class envy thing, pitting people against each other, right? It's never going to, really, 100 some years later, where it's 73,000 plus pages of tax code, manipulating behavior, steering behavior, and now people who actually use the tax code legally are pitted against the others because they call them loopholes. It's not a loophole. It's in the law. It's in the code. There's slippery slope consequences to everything. Well, that's a good idea. We need to create a local governing board that's going to regulate this. And you don't do it. You don't have to do a sarcasm. I would tend to be like, really? You don't think that in 10 years from now they're going to do this to people? I mean, you can't go too far. You can't, like, if you would have back 1913 when they passed when they created the Federal Reserve. Well, it was at Christmas in Jekyll Island, right? You probably read that book. When they created the Federal Reserve, if you would have given them the example about what's happened and the inflation, the manipulation of economy, and the fact that the dollar and our money has no backing of anything real other than they just print money, if you would have said that back when it was done, you would have been laughed at. So don't go. You may think and you may understand trends enough that slippery slope, you can understand where it's going to go. You don't have to go there. You can maybe go here and then maybe ask that question and try to get them to get that trajectory to where maybe they end up there, but don't start there because it's going to scare them. They're going to think you're crazy. Although 73,000 pages of tax code, it's real. These consequences, these slippery slopes are real. Ask questions and make them think about possible alternative solutions. You got to do the work. You got to do the homework. You can't just rail against something because for whatever reason, they support that. For whatever reason, they think that's a good idea. And if they think that's a good idea, don't just say, oh, that's a dumb idea. Well, Here's the thing. There's people out there who actually believe, they still believe, I'm a Democrat because I care about the little man. Really? That's why I'm a Republican. Because I care about freedom. Because I care about the little man. Because I know that tyranny, despotism, rules, regulations, mandates, dictates, steering behavior through the tax code, I know that all of that is bad for the little man. But for some reason, you think that's a good idea. We've got to come up with alternative solutions because they care about the little man. Really, I care about the little man. Here's a free market way to solve that problem. We don't need a government program for that. Here are charities that will solve that problem. We need to encourage the church to step up and take care of those problems so we don't have the government dictating how to do it through cold government secular walls. I'd rather have the church do it. You got to come up with good alternative solutions. Not just ask them questions to do it, but we got to do the homework. We got to do the work and then bring it to them. All right, number 7, set the example. By their fruits ye shall know them. Okay, we need to be that example. So if we're talking about free market solutions or charities that should handle these different things, we should be, supporting and donating. Now I get it. Here's your income. This much is gone in taxes. It would be great to have this much gone in taxes and the rest of it go to charity or these 501c3s or not-for-profits that will take care of these other social programs and not have the government do it. But our taxes are right here. We still got to donate. We still got to donate to these programs, to these C3s, to these charities and not-for-profits to take care of some of these things. We got to be that example. We can't rail on Antifa or BLM because they're blocking traffic and disrupting people's lives and doing all these egregious things and then go over here and I know we're not out there burning buildings and looting people and this kind of stuff, but berating and using, they're doing fascist intimidation tactics and we're over here yelling at people because of masks and stuff like that. We can't do that. We have to set that example. That's just one thing here. Number 8, pray for that divine appointment and listen for that still small voice. This is crucial. I believe that, it really, a lot of these 9 and 10, they all bleed together a bit. Pray for that divine. You've got to pause and pray and ask God for clarity on the right moment to talk to somebody. We want to go in there and we want to plant the seed and close them all in the same conversation and be done with it, and now they're awake. Well, that may not be how it works, and I'll talk about that in a second. But there's going to be timing in people's lives, from the Our Father, right? His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God's will must be done on earth. God gave us dominion of the earth. We need to listen to God for instructions. We're his ambassadors here on earth. We're here to represent. We need to listen to the home office instructions, and he's going to set an appointment, and we got to block out the noise to be able to hear when and what to say. And you go through the stories of the Bible, and that happened all the time, especially through the Old Testament. People listen and people do the will of God at the time he said, and, throw the staff down or whatever the case, or go through all that. That's happened so many times. We need to do that now to bring God's will on earth as it is in heaven, right? And we need to listen for that still small voice. It's super hard now because there's so much noise out there, but we've got to do that. Number 9, be willing to plant seeds and accept you may not be the harvester. You may not be the closer. I know Alec Baldwin said, ABC, always be closing, right? From Glengarry Glen Ross. Well, we may not always be the closer. We may just be the guy who, this person may have had a seed planted by somebody else, and now they're thinking about something, and we listen to that still small voice, and God encourages us to go and talk to them about this, and they talk about, maybe that is something that's going to open their mind up a little bit further, right? Make them think about things a little bit further, but we don't close them on the deal. We may not be there for all the watering and the nurturing and all of that that's going to be necessary and then we may not be there for a couple seasons down the road for the harvest, for them to really truly awaken. But we have to be willing to do our part to plant the seeds and accept that we may not be the harvester and accept that some people just won't wake up. Some people are lost. Right now, time of their life, they're living in fear. They're still watching the news, the program, the television programming. They're still in it. They're still living in fear. Their mind is so closed. They're living in such fear that they just might not wake up right now. That doesn't matter. Our job, our duty is to do our part while the results are up to God. Now that person has to make the final decision. We can't force people to accept Christ, right? I mean, that's not freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. We can't force people to wake up. They have to want to. We have to win hearts and minds with good arguments and good discussions. And the best way to get someone to do something is for them to want to do it themselves and maybe even think that it was their idea. It's not about you getting the credit for waking somebody up. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, at the end of our life, I'm going to stand before God. God's going to say, I gave you natural rights. What did you do? Did you protect them? Or did you consent to being governed like that through tyranny, despotism, rules, regulations? I'm going to stand before God and I'm going to be able to say, I did my part. I finished the race, good and faithful servant, right? All that good stuff. We some people won't wake up. Some people won't make that decision. But I know I'm going to do my part, right? So I'm very curious. What do you guys think about all this stuff? Go to jasonwhoit.com/002. I'm going to have all these notes up on the website here shortly, this video embedded. Share this from my website out. Go to the shop, all that kind of stuff. But I'm very curious. Comment down below. What do you guys think of these 10, not just rules, but guidelines, thoughts and considerations for awakening your friends and family? God bless you guys. Until next time, thank you so much. Don't forget, choose liberty all the time, every